Please help me welcome Doug to our nice PowerPoint.
I'm really excited to be here. I know this is your kickoff meeting for the year, and my hope is that during the time that we're together, I can provide you with some insights and some tools that maybe you can use to even accomplish greater things in 2019 and beyond. This is a topic for which I'm very passionate. As a matter of fact, the second book that's coming out is the title by the same program name, which is Thriving in Conflict. So I go around the country, I work with organizations. How can we take conflict and leverage that to create better results? Let's just start with a quick poll. How many people here in the room are facing some form of conflict in their work life right now? Show of hands. Yeah, I should see a lot more than that, by the way. So, wherever I go, wherever I ask that question, I see lots of hands going up. And it's not you. It's not your industry. This is what we're dealing with all the time. We are surrounded by conflict. It's part of our day-to-day life. But I want to take conflict and I want to switch it 180 degrees. So the two things I want to do in our short time here together today is, first of all, I want to pivot. I want to switch how we think about conflict to see it as an opportunity for us in our day-to-day work. And the second thing I want to do is I want to give you a couple of tools that I found that really help out in terms of getting clarity around conflict and also addressing it. Did anybody ever take any kind of training or education in conflict? Anybody ever do that? A few hands went up in the room, right? But for the most part, we weren't taught how to deal with it. We learned how to deal with conflict. And there's a place that we learn to deal with conflict. And I'm going to ask for some shout outs in a second here. Think about how you deal with conflict. Who taught you? Where did you learn? Let's get a couple of quick shout outs. Where'd you learn how to deal with conflict? Shout it out. Our children, our dad. Other places?
DMV.
That's an inside joke I'm not supposed to get, right? So what else? Where else did we learn? School, on the playground, from our teachers. The most significant place that we learned how to deal with conflict, however, is our parents. Right? So our conflict style is really driven by our families. How many people here in the room think their parents did an effective job teaching them how to deal with conflict? Show of hands. Few hands, look around. But a lot of us, no, really weren't taught well. I'm not going to go into group therapy in here. That's not what this is about. But what I want us to see is that what we learned about, how we learned and what we learned about dealing with conflict wasn't necessarily the most effective way to deal with it. Is that fair? But in business, to me, conflict is nothing more than a gap. It's a gap. It's a gap between what I expect and what I experience. So for example, if I'm working on a project and it's running behind schedule, then that's a gap between what I expect to happen and when I expect it to happen, or what we agreed to, and the ground truth of what's happening at that moment. So the first thing, and the reason that I think that this is important, and the reason I think about it as a gap, is it allows me to depersonalize it. The second part of our definition is when I have a gap, that is now an opportunity for me and others to get deeper understanding. I don't know if you've had this happen, but we walk into situations, or I've walked into situations thinking, I know exactly what's going on. And have you ever gotten in there, and then you find out, oh, no, there's way more to that story. Or we had bad information from somebody about what was happening. To me, and this is the third part of the definition, to me, it's about results, right? If you're accomplishing all the results that you want today, you're free to go. But I think conflict is a spectrum, right? It's like a forest fire. Forest fire doesn't magically erupt somewhere. It starts with a spark somewhere. Then you have smoke. Then you have flames, and then eventually it spreads and erupts into a wildfire. I think the same thing happens at work. Do you ever have that happen? You know something's not right, we don't deal with it, and then it gets worse, and it gets worse until finally we have to deal with it. This is where I want to give you two things. First of all, when you're in conflict, stop and take a pause, take a beat. Because too many times we react to those situations and we only make matters worse. And I'm going to use an example. Somebody showing up late for meetings, right? Drives me crazy. And somebody shows up late after they've done it 3 or 4 times, and then finally I just snap and I say the wrong thing. Now what's the issue? What do you think? It now becomes me. Let's deal with the situation, which is being late to the meeting. So I want to give you 5 questions. Now, am I asking you to do a questionnaire on yourself when you're in conflict? No. What I would suggest to you is if you feel that gut feeling something's not right, stop, take a pause, and these are 5 questions that might help you to think about it differently. The first question is this: what are you seeing, experiencing, feeling? What's going on around you? Why is it bugging you? Because it might bug me that they're late for the meeting, that I have to rewind, that they're not getting the information they want, but what's really bugging me is what? Anybody want to guess why it might bug me when somebody's late to a meeting? It's disrespectful. And they don't mean it that way, but that's the way that I take it. Or I think that they believe their time is more important than mine. Or another one might be that I think they're not committed to the project at the level that I'm committed to it. So the reason the why question is different is because that gets behind my assumptions and my judgments, right? I'm making a judgment about what their intent is and what's going on with them. It lets me, again, de-escalate, because I could be wrong. I don't know what their intent is. I don't know if they think they're more important than me, but that's what's triggering me. And that's one of the questions that goes in the why question, is when you're in conflict, ask yourself, what's triggering you? Because there's certain things that trigger me. Do you guys know what I mean when I say that? Does that resonate for you? And that's really what it's about. If conflict is a gap, how can I see it better, more effectively, sooner? Once you see it, then the question is, how do you name it? I like mnemonics, so letters together that help me remember something. So when dealing with conflict, I'm going to give you a mnemonic. It's on your card there. It's called NEW, N-E-W. And new, think of it this way. I want to create a new result. So, new stands for the 3 things that I need to address when we're in conflict. 1, I need to be able to name it. 2, I need to be able to give an example or examples of what's happening. And 3, I need to address why. And by the way, that's the one we miss the most. And I'll give you an example in a minute. I'll walk through what it might sound like so you can see how it might play. But naming it helps me to create focus and make sure that I haven't personalized it too much. In this case, I want to talk to them about their participation in the meeting. The examples are there to support what you named. Here's what's interesting. Too many times I've worked with clients and they're trying to name it, and they name one thing and they give me examples for something else. They're not showing up for meetings by the way their work product is a piece of crap, right? So those 2 don't match. So make sure the examples tie into it. And the last part is why. And again, I think the why is about how you motivate change. If there's something in it for them, something at stake, then something is going to change. If there's nothing at stake, nothing is going to change. And I think there needs to be one more piece in there. And if you remember, our definition is the gap, and the second part is create understanding. I want to hear their perspective, what's going on from their perspective. So I like to include just a short, easy statement at the end that says, help me understand what's going on from your perspective. What do you see? What are you experiencing? Invite them into the conversation. So I want to use a simple example because it's easier to do that. By the way, I have done this on the full spectrum of conflict, from just simple observational things all the way to the raging fires. I would encourage you to just try it out, stop, take a pause, ask some questions, and then find a way to tee it up in a way that starts that conversation. So here's what I hope I did in our short time together, because I think I'm right on the mark, right? One is, I wanted us to think about conflict in a different way, right? So we think about conflict, run the other way, or it's time to go grab somebody and tell them off. Neither one of those are good for us. Second is, start looking at it as an opportunity for my business, because when you have conflict, when you have disagreement, it is an opportunity for your people to learn, for you to learn, for customers to learn. Take advantage of it. 20 minutes, pretty fast, tried to get a lot in there. I hope I was in service to you. I hope that the couple things that I've given you will help you as you go out into 2019 and start engaging with your partners and your customers to engage in conversations in a different way. You're welcome to reach out. You want to know more about it? I'm not trying to sell you. You can send me a note and say, hey, Doug, could you explain this to me? I'll take the time to do it with you. It's fun to me, so don't hesitate. I appreciate the invitation to come in. Thank you for the invite, Chris, and with that, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.